bit of information to give you, and then we're going to open up for Q&As and anything you guys might have. Remember, you can always throw something in the chat. If you've got a question you want to throw out there, that's the easy way to do it. So first of all, I want to tell you guys this. As far as grading goes, there are no more graded assignments whatsoever in AP Stats. There will not be a final exam. We have not heard from DMAC anything about their final exam. So we're just not planning on having that. So your grade is basically set unless you are somehow in a retaking process or turning things in still. The AP exam will not count towards your grade. In the past, we've used it as final exam. We've obviously given final exams in the past, but we're not doing that this year. So if you have any questions about grading or anything you want to retake or submit to us that hasn't been turned in, make sure you're asking about that as soon as possible. Seniors especially, because seniors, you have today and tomorrow, basically, if I'm remembering the dates correctly, to get any kind of grading work submitted.
Yep, that date's right. The deadline is tomorrow. You're right.
Deadline is tomorrow. You guys who are juniors, or even perhaps the rare sophomore that's out there, I'm looking at UCF, then you have a few extra days to do that. Okay, but we have an AP exam that's coming up on Friday this week, Friday, May 22nd at 1 o'clock. I'm going to show you guys a couple things. I just put some posts out on Classroom that I'm going to show you what's out there, just tell you some resources that we put out. But I'm going to present the screen here to you real quickly and just remind you about something. Just some things you need to be ready for on Friday. I'm going to go out to the website called Stats Medic and just kind of tell you, here's the Oprah meme. You get your notes, everybody gets their notes for the first year only the exam, or first year ever the exam is open notes. So I'm going to click on this just so you can see this. They have put some resources out here that you might want to have available to you during the exam. I've kind of condensed all these and put them into one post on Classroom so it's easy to access. I'll show you that in a little bit. But what I think you really want to look at, what I want to focus on, is these last minute reminders. With only 3 days to go really till the AP exam, make sure you have done this. We talked a lot in the last meeting, so I'm not going to go through this, but make sure you have done this practice website where you practice uploading your work to the AP exam website. We talked about how I recommend using just paper and pencil and then taking a picture of your work and submitting it. That's the way I would do it. iPhone users in particular, make sure that you guys have got your settings so that your pictures are taking JPEG pictures, not HEICs, because those will not work. I've already heard and seen things online about students who've tried that and their submitted work gets rejected because it's the wrong form. The third item says if you're typing your responses, use this keyboard tip sheet. I would not do that if I were you. We've told you before. I just think the best option is just to work your answers out on paper. And then just make sure you log in 30 minutes before the start of the exam so that you're you're ready. You're going to have some work to do ahead of the actual exam, you know, giving them your name, your APID number, things like that. And I'll remind you this before you log in, and we'll put this out on Classroom. Mr. Stevens, help me remember to do this. To remind you guys, have some sheets of paper created and pre-filled out at the top where you've got to put your initials and your APID number. That should be coming in the mail to you tomorrow. So that's ready to go. But one thing they changed, they have changed, or given you, not changed, but given you another option on how to submit your work based on some people having difficulties this week because people have been doing AP exams all this week in other subjects. And so here's the option they give you. If your picture does not upload when you try and submit it, they will give you an option to send your response through an email and where you just attach it. So that option was not available last week, but we'll have it this week. So that's an advantage of going. We're basically the last AP exam out of our courses. So that's something to just keep track of. If you have trouble submitting it, you're going to get a message that will give you an option to email it. So, Mr. Stevens, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you're right. Just, we know that deadline's coming up, that you should be getting your APID and practice and stuff like that too. And then we had a question from the chat from Ben. Should we use a new sheet of paper for question number 2? Also, do we write the question number at the top? I think that's not a bad idea to have your initials, your AP number, and maybe just like question 1, question 2. And remember, any picture you take, you want to try and take that full page picture. But if for some reason you're taking a half page picture top and bottom, it should have your identification numbers on there too. But try to do that nice full picture. And I might even recommend that you take that picture and send it to yourself and see what it looks like. Because we've had some students who will send it to us and say, hey, it looks okay from there. But when we open it on our email, we really have to, kind of sharpen it a little bit or ask you to resubmit it again. So it may not be a bad idea to email it to yourself and then, or to a parent, just to see what kind of level of sharpness that you're getting on your pictures there. But but like Mr. Lofgren says, and like they said, you want to submit something, because if time ran out and you didn't get a chance to submit anything, that kind of eliminates some options that you have. But if you submitted something, and then if they wanted to have a better quality or something like that too, just make sure that you get that submission in. It's more important that you start trying the submission process when your timer runs out than trying to scratch in a little, spend some of those minutes trying to get those extra little pieces of knowledge out of your brain and onto your pieces of paper.
Yeah, and I would add to Ben's question, definitely do a separate sheet of paper for problem 1 versus problem 2. In fact, I'd have a couple sheets of paper pre-written out for problem 1. I'd have a couple other sheets of paper pre-written out for problem 2. Remember, you got to put your initials up there. You got to put your ID number, which you guys should get your ID number, the AP exam ticket in the emails tomorrow. Yeah, I'd have those things ready. And definitely what Mr. Stevens said, don't wait. Don't wait till the last 2 minutes to try and upload your work. You've got to make sure you get that work uploaded, even if it means at the very end, if you're like, I don't have time to answer this last piece of the question F, or whatever it might be, I would just skip it. Just make sure you get it uploaded. It's better to get something uploaded for A through E than to scramble and try and get something written down for F and maybe miss uploading your entire problem. Okay, so let's see. I see another chat thing. Allie says, I think they said take a picture of the full page, even if you only use a half page. I'm not 100% sure. I think if you only used a half page, it'd be okay just to take a picture of whatever your work was, even if it's only half. Just make sure your ID number and initials are on it. And, and of course, label things as you go through. This is part A, this is part B, part C, and so on. Okay, I'm going to project out something that we put out on Classroom that I just put out here a couple minutes ago, so that you guys can see this. Here's Classroom. Okay, 2 important posts I put out. I'm going to go down to the second one. The second one I listed, here's some resources for the AP exam. And I will probably move this to the top of the Classroom post on Friday. So it's going to be the very first thing you see. So it's just right there for you. But this is especially for people who didn't have the purple packet at home because it's at school and you can't get to it. So I put out the formula sheet. I put out the normal table where you look up your Z-scores, put out the T-table, and then the last 3 things, I just stole these right off of Stats Minute. These are some really good summary charts of what we did in Chapter 7, 8, 9, and 10, which is basically everything we did second semester. So I'll just click on one real quick. Here's Chapter 8 and 9. Here's all of our ideas about 1 proportion versus the difference of 2 proportions. Formulas, conditions. If you this is only 1 page, but it's all there for you. So that's kind of a handy thing to look through. I will tell you though, just caution, you're not going to have a lot of time on the test. to be looking things up. You're not going to have a lot of time to say, that's a good question. I wonder where I would go look that up at. You just plan on not having a lot of time to be able to go look things up, but these are here for you if you need to. And then this says chapter 10 and 11. Really, it's just chapter 10, our book, all about means. So one of them is about proportions, one of them is about means. So those are there for you to have as your resources. And of course, you want your calculator with you as well. But the other thing I put out here, reviewing materials for the AP exam, these are some things I'm going to read this to you. First thing I put out here is a summary packet of the entire course. I would definitely read through this to help remind you of the many things we've studied this year. And I'm mentioning towards the end of this packet, there's a really good summary of the different types of intervals and significance tests we did, what their conditions are, what the formulas are, what the calculator methods are. I would absolutely look through this if I were you, okay? I also wrote down, here are some things that I think are likely. Now, I don't know, of course, but these are things I think are likely that could be on the exam that you might need to look back at in particular. So these are things I think that are likely to show up, but that maybe we haven't looked at for a while. So one thing is experiments, the different types of experiments that you could set up. What's the difference between completely randomized versus randomized blocks versus matched pairs? The thing is types of sampling methods, SRS, cluster, stratified. It wouldn't surprise me if you see something on the test that asks you to choose a sampling method and explain why you're using it. I've seen some of the mock exams have asked people to do that. This question has been on just about every mock exam that I've seen people create. How do you tell if two events are independent of each other? Using the probabilities, usually out of a table. How do you determine if they're independent? The conditions, I'll be surprised if you have a question that asks you to check the conditions, perhaps, but I think what's likely to show up there is what is the purpose of the condition? Do we need to check the 10% condition? What's the reasoning behind that? Not just how do you do it, but what is it there for? And finally, interpreting things. I think it's really likely that the test questions this year, they could just give you the p-value. They could just say, hey, you did a significance test. The p-value is 0.07. What conclusion are you going to make? And what's the interpretation of the p-value? What does it mean if the p-value is 0.07? What's it mean if it's an interval and you're 95% confident? Go ahead, Mr. Stevens.
I would also say make sure you're watching the wording. Something that happens very commonly on like the probability questions. It will say like, A, what's the probability the person was a junior? B, what's the probability that the person walks to school given that they're a junior? And then part C might say like, using parts A and B, are these two events independent of each other? So when you're using that kind of wording, you actually have to reference. When they tell you to use A or B or C, you actually have to reference. So you would say like, well, I'd be looking for the two numbers or the two values in A, B to be equal. Or so if you see that little tagline using A and B, you have to reference that back up. And it sounds like that's a little minuscule, but that's kind of like part of the little half points that you can get for context and stuff like that too. Just make sure that you're reading and you're following those instructions, because those are tiny little places to grab off little points here and there.
Yeah. I was going to put out here, and then we'll look. That's might have as well. The website StatsMedic, every year they make predictions of what's going to be on the exam, and often they're pretty close, but they don't really know either. So they made some predictions. I'm just going to show you the link to their prediction. You can look at this more if you want to on Classroom. But they have some interesting thoughts. I'm not going to read through all of this, but you know how question number 1 is supposed to be 25 minutes. Question 2 is 15 minutes. So they think they're predicting question 1 will have 6 parts, A, B, C, D, E, F. And question 2 is going to have 5 parts, A, B, C, D, E. What that means is that because question 1 is 25 minutes and question 2 is 15 minutes, You actually have to work a little bit faster on the second question because it's just a little bit shorter, but you have an entire 10 minutes less time to work on it. So just something to keep track of. And this is another reason why I recommend you do those mock exams. I think this is almost definitely going to be true. In the past exams, you would have guaranteed one of your problems would be an entire panic confidence interval or an entire phantoms significance test. They're not going to ask you to do that this year. They're going to pick off little pieces of panic or little pieces of phantoms and ask you to do just certain parts of it. So just be expecting that. Just be thinking, you know, they might just ask you in a certain problem, what's the type of significance test or the type of interval? I'm going to do a 1 proportion Z interval here, or I'm going to do a 2 sample T test here because it's the difference of 2 means. So just be expecting that. Again, they only get 2 questions, although there's obviously multiple parts to them for the entire stat course. So they're making these predictions. 1 question will be about means, 1 about proportions. That to me seems like an easy split between our 2 big ideas. 1 question is going to be about a single sample, like something you might investigate something about centennial students. And another question is going to be about a 2 sample idea, maybe comparing centennial students to Ankeny High School students. 1 question about intervals, 1 question about parts of a significance test, 1 question about sampling, 1 question about experiments. Again, these are all predictions. So, you know, we don't know exactly what's going to be on there, but those are things I'd look back at. Says 1 final prediction. There's going to be 200,000 students logging in during the exact same 5 minutes all around the world. There are going to be some of those problems, okay? I hope all of your submissions go very smoothly. That's why you want to prepare and practice ahead of time. But remember, you also have that emailing option that is now out there. So that's out there. I'm not going to go through this review sheet at all, but I'm just going to open it real quick so you see it. This is what I would be looking at if I were you. This is 16 pages of glorious statistical knowledge that you can look at. It goes through lots of stuff that we've done, types of graphs. There's some stuff about regression, sampling methods. This gets pretty wordy in here. I'd read it. I'd look back at this. Experimental design. I'd read it. I would look back at all those things. Guarantee you, you're going to have a question or 2 on sampling versus experimental designs. Here's some pictures that help you understand different sampling methods and experimental designs. I would go through this and look at it. I'm not going to go through it all, but I am just going to show you at the very end. Here's a pretty good summary, and you can tell I just stole this from somebody who posted it out there online from another high school. But this is a good summary for each of the different types of things we did. When you use a particular type of interval, what its conditions are, and on and on. So I would look at that if I were you. With that, I'm going to go back out here. And Mr. Stevens, we got any Q&As popping out there in the chat?
Not yet. And I was going to show the students something too real quick. This is a post from one of my my past colleagues, and it shows. Oh wait, Mr. Lofgren might have to give me permission. Anyway, what I wanted to show you is that Google has this great thing that called Google Trends, and you can go to Google Trends and it will ask what's been searched. So on May 12th at 1 p.m., when they had the AP Calc, they had almost 100% of the searches on Google at 1 p.m. were trapezoid sum, slope field, Riemann sum, average rate of change, and integral. So just so you know, they know something's going to happen like that, but it's not going to help. So please just stay away from that. Keep your mind in your game. Keep your head in your notes and go from there, okay? Just don't try to jump out to Google. They know it's going to be there. It's not going to help you.
Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of the information we wanted to just present to you here relatively quickly. If you guys are having questions about things, I'll tell you, you can throw them in the chat, of course. I've had a few students who have been doing the mock exams, sending me their work so I can look it over, point out things to them. I will tell you, one of the things I saw on several people's work that they sent me, I'm trying to think how to word this, okay. Say you have to calculate a probability, and you see a table that has some rows and columns, and you're just picking numbers out of the rows and columns, and it's like Mr. Stevens said before, like, what's the probability you're a junior? And so you look and see, well, how many juniors are there out of the total school, or something like that. And you might look at that and say, oh, there's 100 juniors out of 400 people in the table. And you might say, well, that's 25%, and just write down 25%. One of the things I would really emphasize to you is make sure you show any little thing you calculate, like a percentage like that, just show where you got it from. Just write like 100 divide 400. And they've even said pretty clearly this year that you don't really even need a calculator for this test. So if you're calculating a probability, and say the numbers aren't easy to do in your head, like 100 out of 400, you just say it's 73 out of 296. You can just leave it right there and just say 73 over 296 and move on. But you want to show how you get to some of your numbers that you're calculating. So that was one thing I saw in a few people's work that they were sending out to me. What else we got? Anything else in the chat here, Mr. Stevens?
I don't have anything showing up in the chat.
Okay. You guys are welcome to send us your work if you want to take a picture and practice by sending your work. You can definitely do that. We can look at it and say, yeah, your picture looks good, the format looks good. The people who've sent me work, the first thing I do is I look to see, is JPEG? Can I read it? Is it a good picture? It's not dark, it's not in shadows or anything like that. So we'll give you not only help about how you're responding to a question, but are you taking the picture well and stuff like that. Taylor asked this question: if something goes wrong when you're submitting, will you automatically be directed to an email option, or will you have to reach out? My understanding is that if your submission does not go through, that something automatically will appear to say, hey, do you want to email your work? That's my understanding. But again, I'm just going to emphasize, go do that practice website, go do that demo where you take a practice picture, and if you have any problems on the demo, you're going to have problems on the actual exam too. So it'll flag you and say, hey, you've got an HEIC picture, that's not good, or whatever the situation might be. But you want to make sure you do that practice so you're prepared and you've seen what's coming at you on Friday. Have any of you guys out here taken an AP exam already this week or last week, I mean? Well, Connor, how did it go? Tell us, was the submission process like what we're telling you?
Well, I did AP Lit, so we had to type an essay. It was just one question. So okay. I just did the copy and paste option. I had the test open in one browser and my document open in the other browser. So okay. I was still typing my conclusion with a minute left, and I finally submitted it with 20 seconds left on the timer. So that's how I did mine.
You were cutting it close.
I was, yes.
If you're typing it, though, and all you got to do is copy and paste, I mean, most of us can copy and paste in about 10 seconds or less. It doesn't take that long. Yeah. You won't be able to take a picture, find the picture, email it to your computer, find it on the computer, and then hit upload in 20 seconds. When that 5-minute timer shows up red, I would stop working and I would take your picture right then.
That is probably a good idea.
I think so. I'll tell you another thing that Mr. Stevens and I were talking about. Normally in past years, for the 2 weeks that are leading up to the AP exam, we would have been having review sessions up at school at the nighttime. Like I would go up there, you know, after tennis practice, you know, from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock or something like that, just for students to drop in and work on problems together and get help and things like that. So.
And you got to use the secret door to come in the classroom too.
That's right. We got to use that back door. That's the whole reason I have that room. But we can't meet together now to do that. But we were thinking maybe tonight, Wednesday, Thursday, just having just a time that anybody can join a class meeting here online, that we'll just be sitting here. If you have any sort of specific question, I'm looking at mock exam number 2 and I can't figure out how to do problem D or whatever, that we are happy to just be here and help you out. So I was going to ask you guys if you want to throw in the chat, are there times that you think are better to do that? Like honestly, tonight, I got a big pickleball match I got to head to, so I won't be able to come home until like 9 o'clock to do one. But I'll probably open up a meeting at about 9 o'clock and just see, you know, whether 2 people show up or 20 people show up. You know, I can be here to help answer questions. But if you want to throw out on the chat times that you think would be best, I mean, maybe we could try and gear it towards times that a lot of people think are better for them. And if not, I'm thinking we'll probably just do it in the evening. Oh, I don't know if you guys are reading the chat, but I see from Allie, she took an AP environmental science test yesterday doing copy and paste. Sounds kind of like what Connor was saying. And she thinks she accidentally forgot to copy parts, like the last couple parts maybe of a question. So again, don't leave it to the last 20 seconds or so to finally submit your work. Make sure you give yourself plenty of time to do it. And Connor again is suggesting that there are tons of AP stat videos out there. AP has a great YouTube channel for every single AP course. That they've got great teachers that are out there teaching, you know, single topics within the class that you can look at. Who's joining you, Bailey?
Is it the cat again?
There's that cat.
I took a picture of that screenshot when we had everyone on the side, but Bailey's cat was in the shot, and I sent it to Dr. Lindemann. Don't worry, Dr. Lindemann. We are still educating students and pets around Ankeny, Iowa.
Yeah, that was funny. I don't think she replied to it, though.
No.
She might have not appreciated the humor that we did. Well, Bailey, you're a little bit bigger. You can push the cat out of the way if he's taking your prime spot there.
Is your dog back on your couch, Mr. Lofgren?
I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah, there you go.
That's pretty typical position for Parker. Keeping me company.
That's funny.
Just in case anybody is interested in pickleball locations, I think the name of the park is, I think it's Green Tree Park. It's over kind of by 10th Street, right up against the bike trail. It's sort of not too far actually from Prairie Ridge Middle School and the old Kirkendall Library. And they have 2 tennis courts. The 2 tennis courts are subdivided into 4 pickleball courts. You got to bring your own pickleball net if you want to use their pickleball lines. But sometimes people just use the tennis nets that are up there too. But there, Allie, the match commences at 6:30, and it will end whenever I have achieved more victories than my opponent.
It's a really good park too. It's got a pretty cool that political rope tower thing that you can climb on too.
Yeah, I call it the Eiffel Tower. That's what it reminds me of. That rope structure. It looks like the Eiffel Tower a little bit.
Yeah, it's Green Tree Park. One word, Green Tree.
Okay. Well, Connor, to answer your question, the QPPL, we have not recorded any later statistical data sessions from the QPPL, but there have been games played. Once Ryan got a new paddle, we kind of stopped recording the data for at least for a while, just because I didn't want to skew the data or bias it by just changing paddles right in the middle of the the data gathering process. So we haven't done that, but we still play periodically. I have to show you guys a picture of what I got for my birthday. I'll be right back. Mr. Stevens, you entertain for 30 seconds, and I'll be back showing my birthday gift.
And you can tell that I like Mr. Lofgren because I did not do anything bad to him on his birthday. I had a lot of ideas, but then my wife said, if you're really his friend, you would probably just leave him alone because that's what he would want. So I'm excited too. I don't know what this gift was as well. It wasn't a big birthday, but it was close to a very big birthday.
Okay, I know you're all wondering, what would you give an AP Stats teacher for his birthday? So I will not reveal where this came from, but gift number one, my favorite drink of choice. And, well, you might have a prediction. What else would you predict that somebody would have given me for my birthday? Throw the chat. Let's see it.
Oh, Connor, they'd be crispy M&Ms. They'd be crispy M&Ms before they'd be peanut butter M&Ms. Oh, there it goes. See, Taylor's got it.
Ben says we're insane. I don't know, Ben. Is it insane or not? Okay, ready? Oh
Yeah.
boy.
They're green. That's the right color. Yeah.
Crispy M&Ms and Dr. Pepper. What more could I ask for? It wasn't that creepy, Ben. I'm sure you've seen creepier. Like when I first got on the meeting at like 1:45 and all I see is an open camera staring into Mr. Stevens' empty basement and nobody's there. And it's like I'm just in his house, but he doesn't even know it. That was creepy.
Come on, I'm way more creepy than you. You don't have to give them any ideas.
Yeah, you don't want to know the level of creepiness Stevens has. I sense we've kind of gone off on tangents here.
We should have stopped recording a long time ago.
Okay. Yes. I might have to learn the tool that lets you kind of slice off to certain parts of the video before I upload it.
All right.
On the other hand, we record this for like posterity. What was it like during the Corona pandemic? This is what we talked about.
It'll be interesting. We'll when we have your kids someday in stats, we'll bring these videos back and they can see what you look like at the same age when they don't want to listen to you anymore, that you don't want to listen to your parents.
That's right. Well, those were the main things that we wanted to cover here. I don't know if you guys have other questions. Of course, you're welcome to put them on there, but just remember to do the practice demo, be looking at those mock exams. I didn't see anything about times that they wanted to do, like just open office hour type things. We'll do it at 9 o'clock tonight for one. We'll do it Wednesday and Thursday sometime as well, but we'll put it out in the classroom so you guys can see it. But I don't want you to feel like you have to stay on this meeting and watch us strangely discuss M&Ms and Dr. Pepper. So, but of course, let us know if you have any questions. And we're happy to help out. Otherwise, people are dropping like AP Stat students. There you go. Who will be the last man standing?
Or woman. Bailey's still on there.
There's Bailey. There's Allie. I see. Ben Monroe is probably not really even there. He just got it open. Allie, you're welcome. Ben, I'll tell you, since you're still on, that I have convinced your mom to upgrade your Wi-Fi in your house, and I suggested to her what we just did. So you may have to help her set it up. You can just thank me. Bailey, it looks like you just got mauled by the cat. All right.
It looks like Bailey, on mine, Bailey was the last one there.
That's funny. Ben was the last one on mine.
Oh, do you want me to hit stop recording?
Yes.